All right. So you know a little bit about Albert Einstein. He's got the crazy hair. He said E equals MC squared, whatever that means. Smartest guy ever, right? But here's the thing. His real life, it was way messier, way funnier, and honestly way more ridiculous than you've ever been told. So this guy turned physics upside down from a boring desk job. He got stalked by the FBI like he's some kind of Bond villain. He got offered the presidency of a country, and when he died, someone stole his brain. So yeah, this is the real story of Einstein. So in the early 1900s, Einstein, he's not the famous scientist we know him as today, right? He's working as a patent clerk, so he's basically rubber stamping other people's invention ideas. But at night, him and two of his buddies, they're meeting up in his tiny apartment. They're eating cheap food, and they sit around and argue about science and philosophy. They call themselves the Olympia Academy. It sounds all fancy, but picture three broke 20-year-olds roasting each other and reading philosophy books out loud. That's kind of what this is. This is where Einstein starts doing those mind-bending thought experiments. So he literally asked himself, what if I tried to chase a beam of light? What would it look like? And this crazy little mental game that he played, this is what snowballs into the theory of relativity. So the moral of the story here is that you can never underestimate what a bored genius can do with a couple of friends and too much free time. So now we're fast forwarding to 1919. Einstein writes this wild theory about space and time being flexible. But no one's sure if it's actually real, to be honest, until there's a solar eclipse. So a British astronomer takes pictures of stars during the eclipse. And guess what happens? They look bent exactly the way Einstein predicted. The newspapers completely lose their minds. And overnight, Einstein goes from patent clerk that nobody knows to an absolute rock star scientist. So here's the crazy thing. He hated the fame. Like, imagine trying to explain relativity while reporters just shout smile, flash bulbs in your face. I mean, that's basically what his life is like after 1919. Now, here's where it gets a little spicy. So Einstein, he moves to the U.S., and now we're in the 1930s. So he's very anti-racism, anti-nukes, and he's super, super outspoken about it. Now, these are relatively normal things to be outspoken about, but not in the Cold War. Because in Cold War America, that makes you a target. So J. Edgar Hoover's FBI basically says, hey, let's treat the smartest guy on the planet like he's a communist spy. So they build up this portfolio of Einstein that's 1,400 pages long. They watch his house. They read his mail. They even talk about deporting him. They talk about deporting Einstein. The irony of this is that he literally fled Nazi Germany for freedom. Now, here's a serious plot twist. So we're in 1939, and two physicists show up at Einstein's cottage. They're like, hey, Germany might be building this super weapon. Can you sign this letter to President Roosevelt so he'll pay attention? Einstein shrugs. He signs it. And that letter, it basically kickstarts the Manhattan Project that builds the atomic bomb. But guess what? When the project gets rolling, the U.S. military says, yeah, thanks for the letter, Einstein, but we don't really trust you. You're too political and you're too outspoken. So then he's banned from working on the bomb. Imagine starting the biggest science project ever and then being told, hey, you lost your invite. Now, in 1952, Israel's first president dies. The government actually asked Einstein, hey, do you want to be the next president of Israel? So they're serious. They're completely serious about this. And he'd be President Einstein. So instead of equations, he'd be arguing over tax policies. And if you know anything about Einstein, it's not surprising that he eventually declines. He basically says, look, I can handle physics, but I can't handle politics. That's not my vibe at all. It's not up my alley. So instead, he goes on and continues breaking the rules of the universe. All right, this part's kind of rough. So Einstein's first marriage was a little complicated. His wife, Mileva, was a physicist as well. But things got a little messy. So at one point, Einstein literally writes her a list of conditions for them to stay married. Stuff like, do my laundry, don't talk to me unless necessary, keep my study tidy. It's a little rough. Mileva, she's not having it. She dips. So they get divorced, and as part of the deal, Einstein promised her that if he ever won the Nobel Prize, the money would go to her. Now, 7 years later, he does win. And in 1922, he's true to his word, and he gives her the cash. So Einstein might have been a genius with the universe, but not so much with relationships. Okay, here's the one that really blows my mind. So Einstein dies in 1955. He wanted to be cremated with his ashes spread privately. Sounds pretty simple so far. But the doctor who did his autopsy is like, no, this guy can't be cremated. So he takes the brain of Einstein. He just took it, kept it, put it in jars. And at one point, he literally transported Einstein's brain across the country in the trunk of a car. He even mailed pieces of the brain to scientists. So some studies said, his brain looks kind of unusual, kind of unnatural. But nothing super conclusive. Mostly it's just wild that this guy had stole Einstein's brain. So the guy who cracked the secrets of the universe couldn't even rest in peace. So let's lighten it up a little bit. So Einstein, he loved playing the violin. He called it Lena. He'd jam with other scientists like it was band practice. And he also loved sailing. But the problem with this was he didn't know how to swim. So he capsized boats constantly and had to get rescued over and over again. He's a genius on land, complete chaos in the water. So yeah, Einstein, more than the mean, more than the equation. He was a messy, funny, brilliant, rebellious human. He rewrote science from a patent office. He roasted the FBI. He turned down a presidency. And he accidentally inspired the atomic bomb. And, of course, his brain went on a road trip. So next time you see that photo of Einstein sticking his tongue out, remember that behind the goofy face was life way stranger than fiction. And he's way more human than we make him out to be.